Hello! Okay, so for our second Ben Franklin book this week, we are reading Ben Franklin, His Wit and Wisdom from A to Z, written by Alan Schroeder and illustrated by John O'Brien. So this book happens to have quite a bit into it. So what I'll do is I'll just go through and I'm going to read a selection of pages, the ones that I am most interested in, I think you'll be interested in. And then when we get back into class, this will be in our library, and so you'll have a chance to look through it. We're going to start here with A. A is for almanac. Almanacs were very popular in colonial America. Every household had one. They sold well because they were full of useful information. Farmers relied on them to find out the best time of year to plant a particular crop. Sailors used them to study the rise and fall of the tides. Almanacs also contained calendars, weather forecasts, recipes, and medical advice. Benjamin Franklin wrote and published the most popular almanac of all. It was called Poor Richard's Almanac. And every year he'd print a new edition. Poor Richard's was full of clever sayings. People still enjoy reading them today. Here is one of those sayings. Wise men don't need advice, and fools won't take it. Never leave that till tomorrow, which you can do today. Right. E is for electricity. Though few people understood how it worked, electricity was one of the great marvels of the 18th century. Ben began experimenting with it in the 1740s when a friend sent him some equipment. It quickly became his greatest obsession and one of his greatest pleasures. Not all of Ben's electrical experiments were a success. Once, in front of his friends, he electrocuted himself. It was a frightening moment for everyone. Ben's experiments with electricity made him world famous. E is also for education. As a boy, Ben didn't get much formal education, only 2 years of it. Then at the age of 10, his father took him out of school and put him to work. E is also for exercise. Ben was a great believer in exercise. He walked, he swam, he lifted heavy trays of type to keep in shape. Ben Franklin lived to be 84 years old. I think he was right. I is for invention. Ben Franklin invented all sorts of things. A wind-powered meat roaster, an automatic device to shoo away flies, a claw on a pole for retrieving items from high shelves, a wooden chair that turned into a stepladder when the seat was flipped. Woohoo! P is for printer. Ben took pride in his work as a printer. He kept his presses in good working order, and he used high-quality paper and ink. He wanted his newspapers and almanacs to look good. He also strove to make them easy to read, relying, for instance, on black ink, not gray, which he found too dim. Unfortunately, most printers in the colonies did not set their standards as high as he did. The newspapers in Boston, for instance, tended to be smudgy and difficult to read. According to Ben, if you wanted to keep something a secret, then you should have it printed in the Boston newspaper. P is also for picnic. Soon after he began experimenting with electricity, Ben hosted a picnic for his friends, an electric picnic. Every aspect of the day, from the food to fun, involves some form of electricity. P is also for pigeon, because Ben Franklin kept pigeons. P is also for postmaster. As postmaster of Philadelphia, it was Ben's job to get the mail through. He was constantly looking for ways to speed up delivery. If all printers were determined not to print anything until they were sure that it wouldn't offend anybody, then there would be very little printed, he once said. And he that hath a trade hath an estate. A trade is a job. So someone who has a job, someone who has something that they can do and that they can make money with is someone who can make a life. V is for visitors. Though Benjamin was fond of visitors, even he had his limits. Fish and visitors smell after 3 days, he wrote in Poor Richard's Almanac. V is also for vegetarian. When Ben was a teenager, he became a vegetarian, but not for long. He liked eating fish too much. V is also for Valentinois. When Ben Franklin went to France in 1776, he settled at the Hotel des Valentinois in Passy, a half-hour's drive from Paris. Though he missed his relations in the colonies, he remained in Passy for nearly 9 years. Wish you were here, wish you were here, wish you were here, he wrote. He also said, a learned blockhead is a greater blockhead than an ignorant one. So a blockhead is someone who's silly, but someone who at least has tried to teach themselves something is at least a little less silly. All right. And let's end at Z and back to A. From electrical experiments to diplomacy to seeing to it that the streets of Philadelphia were kept clean, Ben approached every project with zeal, or as he preferred to call it, public spirit. Philadelphia was fortunate to have a son like him, and so was the nation. Z. Franklin often wrote a humorous piece, Petition of the Letter Z, in which Z, or Z as he called it, complains about being stuck at the end of the alphabet. And now back to A. A is for American. Benjamin Franklin was called many things during his life, a patriot, a genius, a friend to humankind, but he never allowed such praise to go to his head. He wanted, he said, simply to be remembered as a useful citizen, and certainly he got his wish. Okay. An investment in knowledge always pays the best interest, he once said. I hope you've enjoyed. Remember, if you want to see more about those other letters I didn't get to, this will be on the library in our classroom.